Alright, so we have, of course, finished the lair of the Shadow Broker. Let's just take a quick peek at our map here. Because, we see Hagolos is the place where the Shadow Broker's base is. I don't recall, were we actually able to explore this area last summer? Did we end up teleporting straight over here? I think we did, based on how we have 0% exploration in this area. So why don't we take a quick look around in that case? And, there will be reason for us to come back to Shadow Broker base in the future. Of course, the mission itself is done, yes, but one of the primary reasons why we did it as early as we did was because, as we saw in the base previously, there are a few things we can come back for to potentially generate additional credits, or come back to check in on our investments and what have you. So, gonna try to make a mental note to regularly visit back to the Shadow Broker base, but I am sure I will forget at least at some point. But at least, in theory, that's something we'd like to do. But let's take a look around here, see what else we have in this area. We have Issa, a rock and ice planet. Issa has a thin atmosphere of methane and ethane. Its borax deposits, largely trapped beneath the ice, were never considered valuable enough to mine since synthetic substitutes and alternative sources became widely available. So, I mean, we'll scan, ran it. Whoa, depleted. Surprised. It's not very often we see depleted. Core we see fairly often, but depleted, I think, for the most part, we've only seen in the local system, where, well, Earth is, which, you know, understandably is a place where there's been a lot of resource mining, but definitely not going to be launching any probes there. We'll see. I mean, chances are it's very unlikely that we will launch any probes here, but, you know, if there's something that's amazingly awesome, or more likely if there was something that actually had an anomaly, then we'd launch a probe there, of course. Let's see. Then we have Uruz, a hydrogen-helium gas giant. Uruz has a decrepit automated infrastructure for refueling merchant vessels with helium-3. Painted onto the metal in a Solarian dialect are the words self-serve. Interesting. Well, this one is also not in the best of shape from a resource standpoint. Does sound like this is a place where people have been mining those resources, so, I mean, we're definitely not going to launch any probes there either. Okay, let's see. Then we have Zeus. Now, this is... Hold on. This is giving me Binding of Isaac flashbacks, right? They're all... What is it in Binding of Isaac? Is it the ruins? The runestones? That have these names? Zeus... When this is in Binding of Isaac. Is it the purity one? Gives you like a spirit heart and I forget what else it does. It's been a while. But it's I mean, they didn't just make it up for Binding of Isaac, in case you're wondering, like, how is that? That's a crazy coincidence. No, it's I forget what it's from. Is it from North mythology? Might be from Norse mythology. Some kind of mythology, I think. But anyways, let's scan, or at least check it out. It's a large rock planet. Zeus was once under development by a consortium of robo-mining interests, but an epidemic of accidents and sabotage cost the lives of hundreds of workers and eventually drove them off the world. Despite numerous accusations among the mining corporations and a dozen or more trials, popular opinion holds that the real saboteurs were never found. And perhaps for that reason, we see here that it is a rich planet, and it is usually quite hard to find good sources of Element Zero. We did, in particular, make a point of getting as much Element Zero from planet scanning as possible in the past, so if we hadn't sort of already done that, this would probably be a very good place to get the Element Zero, because that's a pretty large chunk for Element Zero in particular. That's not a bad source of Iridium either. So, I mean, these are the types of planets where, I mean, here as well, the types of planets where if we had been a little more patient and not just rushed into launching probes when and wherever we saw a somewhat big source of resources, and we were just like, whoa, that's good. And we were, you know, just a little pickier, then we might have been able to technically save a few more probes by being a little bit more efficient, getting a few more resources per probe. But alas, I think, like I said, we have enough resources right now that we probably aren't going to launch any more probes for that purpose. And, you know, if we do find later on in the game that we need that type of stuff, then we can circle back and find other places to launch more probes to collect the remaining resources we need. Obviously, Hagolos here is the place where Shadow Broker base is, or at least appears to be, based on what we're seeing now. Of course, like I said, we apparently teleported here in order to get to the Shadow Broker base previously. Hagolos is a second-tier garden world that receives little attention from the galactic community. It is a little bit strange how we saw in the outer areas of the system, there were planets that had been mined considerably for resources, and yet the Shadowbroker base was hiding in that same system. You would have thought it would have been in some very remote system that had no attention at all, and that would be how the Shadowbroker was able to stay hidden for so long, but, I don't know, apparently the previous Shadowbroker was hiding right under people's noses. But, a Salarian mining expedition initially discovered the planet, which was promptly strong-armed away from them by organized crime figures. Okay, I suppose if it's been overrun by crime figures, then perhaps that would drive people away. Hagolos' exploration rights were then sold to the highest bidder, which led to a brief burst of mining colonies in the 2000s, but most of those were abandoned when other planets were found with more accessible resources. Okay, so people did go here briefly, but then, as we were saying, moved out to the other planets in the system. Though Hagolos has a nitrogen and oxygen atmosphere capable of supporting life, its rotational period is slower than Earth's, making its day and night 98 Earth days long. Wow. That's a long day and a long night. The intense heat on one side of the planet and the extreme cold on the other make for violent storm cells wherever the sun is rising or setting. As a result, the flora and fauna of Hagolos have developed a capability to live in cycles of ice, flooding, baking heat, and dramatic air pressure changes. Biota of the planet has been largely unexploited by the exotic pet and gardening trades, since simulating their natural conditions is problematic for the average consumer. There may be some interesting animals for the exotic pet trade, but finding a way to recreate their habitats in a different area, rather difficult. But it's interesting how it does have some Earth-like characteristics. Just the ginormously long day and night cycle. That part, not so much, but then the atmospheric pressure, fairly close. On the side that is facing the sun, understandably, gets quite hot because, well, it's facing the sun for a very long time, has a lot of time to heat up. And conversely, on the other side, where the sun, or star, is not facing it, gets very cold, but, if you're just sort of right in the twilight zone, then presumably that's pretty okay. So I am curious, scanner-wise, it is moderate. They were saying that there was, at one point in time, interest in turning this into a planet they would use for mining purposes, but then, as we saw, people moved elsewhere, so that would have perhaps given us reason to suspect that this might have been a rich planet, but not the case. And of course, the big thing is that, as I was saying, we can go back here, land, and not actually landing on the planet itself, we're landing on the Shadowbroker's base, which we will look to do in the future. But, of course, we just were there, so no need to do that right now. Then we have Canals. Canals' extremely thin atmosphere is mostly methane and helium. The Salarian explorers who named the system set up a small mining presence for recovering nickel and chromium used in making stainless steels. And this one is rich. Again, without an anomaly, it is very unlikely we'd ever actually launch a probe here, unless we found ourselves in particular need of these resources, but again, at this stage, we were pretty aggressive early on, and so don't really have any reason to suspect that we will need them, at least in the short term. Long term, we do find that we need iridium. Well, we've got a great place to find it. That's a whole lot. That is definitely scale breaking. So, that would be awesome for that purpose. But I think, we have enough on hand at the moment that it's not urgent, and so if we do ever find that we need it, then we can come back here to pick it up. But, otherwise, we just save a little bit of credits by not sending out additional probes. And like we were saying, it's something that we just may not need at all at this point. Let's see. Then we have Uruz, a large rock planet with a pressure cooker atmosphere of nitrogen and argon. Uruz's silicate-rich crust is relatively low density. It was largely ignored by the Salarian explorers who first charted the system. It is 635 degrees Celsius, though, and, 78.58 Earth atmospheres is extremely dense atmosphere. So that does make some sense, and it does make some sense that this would be a rich planet as well, given how it seems as though nobody can really go anywhere near this thing. Or at least would be extremely difficult to ever set foot on it. Now, granted, haven't seen any big sources of any resources yet, but I imagine there's got to be some hidden around here. Like I said, again, probably not actually launching any probes here, but out of curiosity, yeah, it does seem like this system in general is just stock full of iridium. It's a separate source right there. Definitely not as good as the first, though. That might be the same one we were just looking at. But, yeah, I mean, for a rich planet, this is not that much besides that one really good source of iridium. I suppose that's, like, not bad. It's actually pretty decent right there as well. Alright, so again, we're not actually going to launch any probes here because we're doing pretty well in that sense, just out of curiosity, looking at how good they are. And I suppose if anyone playing along with us is not as aggressive early on with launching all those probes, then you might find that you have some higher efficiency places to launch those probes in this system or other systems. But again, just means that you might not be able to do all those upgrades quite as early as we did. But that's 100% exploration for this system now, and it is technically in the Hourglass Nebula where we had been previously. We just didn't know that this place existed, the Shadowbroker base at the time. So, also, where the heck is the mass relay over here? Because it doesn't look like it's in the Faryar system, nor is it in the Ploitari system. So, assume it's somewhere over here. Oh, this way. Change course. Yes, that is one potential downside to visiting the Shadowbroker base frequently, is that, as you just saw, it's kind of far away from the mass relay, and therefore it does take some somewhat significant fuel to head to and from it. And so, over time, you're gonna have to spend a little bit of credits to refuel from all that, and, you know, on net, I think it definitely does still pay off, but it is something to bear in mind, is that it's not technically free to go there in that sense. But, let's see, before we actually head over to this mass relay, let's head out for a second, because we were just...
for you, Commander.
Okay, good to know that nobody has messaged us while we were just briefly exploring the galaxy. I mean, I suppose we did, of course, do a fair bit of travel, actually. But before we actually hop through that mass relay, let's double check what we might actually want to do next, because we do have several options here. We have Arrival. That one, like I've said in the past, we're going to wait to do that until perhaps the very, very end of the game. We have the Omega Archangel datapad recovered, which we picked up during Archangel's recruitment mission, but we have not yet circled back to Omega to turn this in to Arya. But that eventually will certainly be something we'll look to do, but that's basically instantaneous. We just talk to Arya and we should get that done. So it's not really much of a full-blown mission. So in terms of full-blown missions, in terms of what we'd like to do next, I think we're looking at something big here, recruiting somebody, whether it be the assassin, Thane Krios, Justicar Samara, or Tali, but in particular, and then we do have some loyalty missions that are starting to accumulate as well. But I'd like to focus on recruiting people first and foremost, just to add more people to the team. Because, as we have seen, of course, there tend to be specific people who tend to do better in certain situations, and so the more people we can add to the team, the more flexibility we have in that sense. And there are definitely some aspects, some things that we don't have a lot of people that specialize in them. For example, damage against barriers. We are quite lacking on that front at the moment. That is basically just Miranda with Warp. I think that's pretty much it. Jack, eventually, once we complete her loyalty mission, which is actually right here, then we can get her new ability, which will be Warp Ammo, which will definitely make her turn into a anti-barrier person once we get that, but we don't have it at the moment. So that's another thing to just bear in mind is, you know, the more people we add to the equation, the more options we have to pick who we think might be a good fit in any given situation. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go for the Justicar here. So as a reminder, the Justicar, well, her name is Samara. Biotic strength near that of an Asari matriarch. Impressive. Extensive weapons training, also quite useful. Samara is a Justicar, a rare member of an Asari monastic group trained in enhanced combat biotics alongside standard weapons. That seems like an odd combination, but sure. Samara has recently sighted, or was recently sighted on Ilium, outside normal Asari space. So of course, we have been to Ilium, so we will look to circle back there now. We, I believe, have not really spent many credits, if any, since having finished Lair of the Shadowbroker, so we might have a fair bit more of those to spend on Ilium, because we did run into many shops there previously, and we just didn't really have the credits to buy all the stuff we wanted to buy. And here is Ilium, and as you can see, we still have Recruit the Justicar, Recruit the Assassin, Help Miranda, that's her loyalty mission, a bunch of things still to do on Ilium, so it is definitely going to be one of our hub worlds. Kind of similar to the Citadel. Obviously, it's not quite as big, but there's a lot of similarities there. And in fact, is this the first time we've really looked at our galaxy map in full, or at least in the full Milky Way, post-Horizon? Because, I mean, surely not when we at least went to Ilium initially. But as we can see here, well, there's the Shadowbroker base, so we will, as I said, head over there on a future occasion. We have the new Rosetta Nebula, which we've not explored yet, but that is where we will do Jacob's Loyalty mission. We have a safe crashing ship. Oh, is that a rival? I'm gonna say that name doesn't really ring a bell, at least that description doesn't really ring a bell. I'm not entirely sure what that is. Far Rim. Emphasis on the far part. Recruiting tally, she is way out in the middle of nowhere. Bear in mind, the Citadel and all Citadel species Citadel races are generally in this little area of the galaxy. You know, like, so this is where the Citadel is, the Sari are in this area, so are the Turians, the Solarians, Krogan, for Tuchanka, which is the Krogan homeworld, which we now have the ability to visit, which is very cool. Getting the chance to see what the deal is with where the Krogans came from, and of course we saw and played with Rex in Mass Effect 1, and so to get a better sense as to what they're all about, that'll be a lot of fun to see. And then humans are over here in the local cluster. So this is basically this little pocket right here, where almost all of the primary species that we run into call their home. And so for Tally to be all the way on exactly the opposite side of the galaxy is pretty extreme. As we've said previously, this sort of northern half, if you will, of the galaxy is the Terminus systems, which is basically the lawless place where all the criminals tend to run the show, far more so than the Citadel races do. Basically, the council races, I should say, have little to no authority there. They don't bother trying to instill any sort of order in that area, because if they did, they would get quickly overwhelmed by just countless criminals and potentially start war with all the Terminus systems. Not a good idea. So, and then, like, this area down here is sort of the area where the humans and the Batarians, which you may remember from Mass Effect 1, when we ran into Bollock from Bring Down the Sky, they've been trying to expand into this area, and been a little bit of infighting between those. Is it really infighting? They're two different species. They've been fighting between one another, trying to carve out some space for new colonies, and then as you start getting in this area, you know, this is sort of the in-between, what is it, Attican Traverse, I think, where on the edge of the Terminus systems, certainly dangerous, largely uncharted, areas where people are sort of high risk, high reward, trying to find new and exciting places to create colonies, but still at the risk of attacks from the Terminus systems, and fairly far away from the protection of the Council at the Citadel. So, that's sort of a little overview of, I think we've talked about it before, but a look at the galaxy and just some context as to why that is pretty darn significant that Tally is all the way over here, because actually, in addition to that, Terminus systems and all the other areas of the galaxy, this northeastern corner here, if you will, is where the Perseus Veil is, which is basically supposed to be this big cloud in the galaxy that is really hard to see through, and theory has it that that's where the Geth call home, or where at least, you know, that's their main hub of operations. And so it does appear as though Tally is pretty deep in Geth territory over here. But anyways, that's all an aside, because at least for now, interesting as all those other places might be, and we will eventually get there, Ilium is next. Okay, so obviously we have been to Ilium before. And we have, I was going to say we have explored this area before. We apparently missed this planet, though. This gigantic one right here with the huge rings. Oops. Alright, let's give it a look. It's Thale. Thale's a typical hydrogen-helium gas giant. Its complex system of rings is unstable, dating back only a few million years. They are thought to be the shattered remains of a comet. If we're scanning it, I mean, it has moderate resources here, but with no anomaly, it is very unlikely we'd ever launch anything here. I mean, it's not the worst source of palladium, but, you know, as we've said previously, we don't really have a desperate need for these things, and if we did, we'd go to a planet that was rich in a given resource and pick them up there instead. But interesting to take a look nonetheless, and let's head on in to Ilium. Okay, and in terms of who we take here, I think that technically this is just going to be, you know, who's walking around with us for just walking around an Ilium. And so, you know, no combat here. I think once we actually begin the official mission, we'll get the chance to change. So it shouldn't really matter who we take in that case. Is there any reason why a specific person might have additional dialogue or what have you? I don't really think so. So I think we'll probably just do what we tend to do when we're in these types of situations and take the people who we see the least often, namely the Jays, Jacob, and Jack. I think are probably still the two people that we see the least, so let's pick them. And we did level up a bit from Lair the Shadowbroker, and oh boy, speaking of not using Jacob or Jack very often, we do have a lot of points left with them. So that's an interesting one. I mean, if we're not really expecting to do anything with them here, we might save some of these points, in particular with Jack, because as we were saying before, warp ammo is definitely something we are interested in using with her, but we can't use it until we finish her loyalty mission. So we might just want to save up all these points until we get to her loyalty mission, and then just throw a whole bunch into warp ammo as soon as we can. As for Jacob, I mean, I think for him it's pretty simple. We don't really care about barrier, so why not just fully upgrade pull? I think it's not really any downside to doing that now. I imagine when we do this, of course, we're going to have the option to go either heavy pull to give us basically a longer pull, or pull field to give us an AoE on our pull. So let's do it. As for which one we would prefer to do, just take a look at the details. So for heavy pull, your levitational abilities keep your target suspended for longer. I believe it may also be more effective against bigger, heavier targets, lifting them higher up in the air, and I think generally there is a factor, or at least this ability as a whole does consider how heavy the enemies are, and that it certainly affects how high they get pulled. It may also affect the duration of the pull. So, you know, if you're, for example, trying to lift something like, say, a Yammer mech, you might need heavy pull in order to succeed at that. I mean, I might be thinking back to Mass Effect 1, in which you needed the fully upgraded lift, which is basically the equivalent of Mass Effect 1 equivalent of this ability, in order to lift the heaviest of enemies. But Full Field has the same recharge time. It is 3 seconds shorter on the duration, but it does have a 3-meter radius, so it means that, yes, it is possible to pull multiple enemies in simultaneously. So, I mean, given how pull is an ability we would like to have as a crowd control ability, having it only disable one enemy at a time is kinda unfortunate. So, I think I would prefer pull field. So we'll go for that, and then Cerberus Operative, I mean, this is the passive one that'll give a combination of health and weapon damage. And, I mean, we can throw 1 point in it, so why not? We will. So that's Jacob. We don't have enough points to get to Cerberus Operative number 2. So, like I said, I think with Jack, at least for now, let's hold off. For us, we were trying to save up our incendiary ammo, get that up to rank 4 pretty darn soon, so we can get this up to squad ammo, because we, for the most part, thus far, have been pretty reliant on always bringing at least one squad member that has a squad ammo ability, and if we could be able to provide that ourselves, then that might give us a little more flexibility with the other squad mates that we bring, so we don't always have to bring, say, Zaid for disruptor ammo, or even Jacob for incendiary ammo. So, for those reasons, I think we'll probably wait on that, and then, you know, we don't want cryo ammo. We can't yet afford a pull upgrade for us, so either way, I think, you know, this is not the most intriguing of options right now. Then, in terms of weapons, I think this quite literally doesn't matter. So, let's take a look around here on Ilium.
Commander, a pleasure to see you again. Can I help you with something?
So this was the person that first greeted us when we first went to Ilium. I believe we asked them about all these things previously, so we should be fine there.
Visit to Nos Astra, Commander.
So let's just keep on moving, in that case. And, in fact, were we even... I just barely remember this little entryway over here. Since, for the most part, once we got in here, we were focusing on the area where all the shops are, in this area right here. And given how I believe we do have some more credits now, it's probably worth taking a quick look here, see if there is anything else we can pick up. Because there were some nice things that we were eyeing, but we just didn't have the credits to buy them. Like biotic damage, we can afford, just barely. That'd be nice. Doubling the time for bypass. Bypass is the one that we've been pretty good at. I would not be too concerned about that. Kestrel armor, I believe, technically, we get all the pieces, is actually a little bit superior to what we have right now, the Cerberus armor. I don't think we can afford all these, or, well, actually, we probably can. That's, probably low enough we can get them all. It's just, I don't think we'd be able to afford biotic damage and every piece of the Kestrel armor. So, biotic damage is certainly very tempting. There was at least one other shop. I know, the bar's up there. There's some additional stuff back in this area. And, I know we bought everything from one of those spots. But, I'm not sure. There may still be at least one, possibly even two, other places that we can purchase things from back here. So, let's just weigh which one we'd rather have. The biotic damage upgrade, or the, well, whatever we can afford back here. This biotic damage is definitely very tempting, and there might even be other upgrades that are bottlenecked behind getting that biotic damage upgrade, in which case, all the more reason to focus on that.
Something that dangerous with just a contract and a waiver?
These are the terminus systems. Everything's dangerous, and everything's for sale. Either we tax and monitor it to keep some control, or the smugglers get a monopoly.
Were these people here before? There are definitely people who were chatting around this area in the past.
She's the last of a dying breed.
But I think this is the area where we purchased everything previously. Yeah, there's nothing left here. This is the place where we purchased some of the star charts, and I forget if I mentioned this, but technically, we did buy all of them, thinking that we were going to need all of them in order to see them and get the chance to explore all the planets there, and eventually gather resources, or certainly, if there were any anomalies, side quests there, we would definitely want to do them. But I think that there are actually some of those that we purchased that you don't technically need, at least if you have and do all the DLCs. Like, I think Kasumi's DLC for her loyalty mission might be one of the areas. I think Overlord might have given us one, possibly even two, or maybe Firewalker did. Don't quote me on the exact specifics there, but basically I just think that you technically don't need to buy all of those, because there are at least some other ways to get some of those other ones, rather than just having to pay credits for them. So there are some upgrades here that are potentially worth picking up. Assault rifle damage and submachine gun damage. We don't have an assault rifle, or at least we can't use an assault rifle, so it's probably a little bit lower priority. Submachine guns, we certainly now, having picked up the Locust, are a little bit more inclined to use this, and if we start to run out of ammo with our shotgun, which does happen somewhat often, then this, all the more reason, could be something for us to want to pick up. Probably still a little bit lower priority than the biotic damage. It's debatable. You could argue that's a little bit better. So that is probably the other thing that would be contending for what we ought to pick up here. These are all just cosmetic collectibles. So I think
we're looking for weapons.
I think we go biotic damage.
Should we be taking this seriously?
I think we go biotic damage, but we would like to get that SMG damage upgrade soon. So let's double back real quick, pick up that biotic damage, and I mean, maybe after finishing our next mission, we'll have enough to pick up the SMG damage upgrade. That'd be fantastic if we could. Otherwise, I mean, we'll continue, of course, to take a look around at places like the Citadel, like Omega, and see if there are other things we'd like to pick up. As we were saying previously, I don't believe we have enough possible theoretical credits from completing every single quest and picking up every single loot crate for us to purchase everything in existence, so we do need to be somewhat decisive, somewhat picky in terms of what we choose to purchase and what not to purchase. So things like those collectibles, for example, that's one way to save a little bit of monies. Some armors, potentially, even though I was saying the Kestrel might be a little bit better. Maybe we pass on that. Bypass module, we'll definitely pass on that. But let's go with the biotic damage. It is a little bit more expensive, I think. But let's pick it up. And now, as we're seeing, yeah, we're not really able to afford much. Might be able to get all the pieces of this Kestrel armor, but I kind of doubt it, because that's 15,000 right there. And then, yeah, add this, and, I mean, we could get 3 out of 5 pieces, but not the full thing. So, we may technically need to head back to our, the Normandy in order to actually, unlock that upgrade. So, that's like, make the case that's worth doing. Sure. Technically speaking, that is the optimal thing to do. It is the optimal thing to do because we did the hard part, actually buying it. But as we've said in the past, I believe for the most part, even when we buy those upgrades from shops, we still need to invest the resources in confirming the research. It's basically just we bought the blueprint for it, if you will. So let's return to the Normandy real quick. I mean, I may be misremembering. I thought we determined that was the case, but then again, I feel like that wasn't the case 100% of the time, so I could be wrong. And if that is the case, then we'll just double back. But let's see. So yeah, there's the... Oh? Research unlocked for biotic cooldowns. And that would suggest that we did, in fact, get the biotic damage to immediately get installed. I think that is the case. So we didn't actually need to double back for it. Except, as we suspected, that was a bottleneck for biotic cooldowns. So this one will give us a 20% faster biotic cooldown, which is certainly nice. For things, for us, like charge, at times when we find ourselves in a very dire situation, we're out of shields, we're low on life, and we're right next to an enemy that is potentially about to blast us in the face and finish us off, being able to charge, get our shields back, stagger them, and hopefully run for cover and give ourselves some time to reset ourselves. That would be great if we could do that a little bit faster. And then, of course, we also have pull, which would be nice to be able to do that a little bit more frequently, and other teammates as well. So let's nab it. We have the resources to do so. Any subsequent biotic upgrades, I kind of doubt it, but yeah, between the biotic damage and the biotic cooldowns, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to pick up that biotic damage upgrade, was because we suspected there might be something else waiting for us to finish it. And now, across those two things, our biotic should be a fair bit stronger. So now we're ready to, yes, land on Ilium, but more importantly, to actually start up this mission. So, I mean, once again, I mean, sure, we'll take Jacob, we'll take Jack, but don't really care about spending points. We already did that. As we were saying, our weapons don't really matter much, because we're just walking around here, and what we do need is we look at the specifics for the Justicar. We need to talk to the tracking officer Dara in the transportation hub. We actually just walked past her a minute ago, and we'd seen her on a few previous occasions. We deliberately opted not to talk to her yet, because we knew that we were going to need to talk to her for, well, this mission. And we knew that we did not yet want to do that when we were focused on Lair of the Shadow Broker.
Sell at 25.
No, you're not hearing me. I want to buy it up. Buy it all.
Alright, so she's over here. Just listening to the bolus and the Asari back there. It's pretty funny. No, I want to buy it all.
Listen, I know the data is
Okay, so it is the Asari who was over here, sitting at a desk, is the person we are supposed to speak to. And Thane Krios, the notorious assassin, is the guy we are trying to recruit later on. So, he will be on our list. Here is Dara, though. Let's go chat.
Pure bloods are a waste of genetic potential. That's how we... Can I help you with something?
I'm looking for an Asari warrior named Samara.
Wait, why? Do you have a problem, or did she kill somebody already?
Oh dear. Well, there's some insights as to what type of person we're talking about here. Only looking to talk right now.
Relax,
Don't really know
I just
anything.
need to speak with her.
Good. Samara's the first Justicar I've seen on Ilium. If I'm lucky, things will stay peaceful. She went to the commercial spaceport a few hours ago. If you want to get there, the pedestal on that balcony will summon a cab. Just be polite when you meet her. Justicars embody our highest laws, and they usually stay in Asari space. She's not used to dealing with aliens.
Ah, okay. Let's see what else we can learn about then. Does seem like you're rather concerned about Samara.
Is Samara really that dangerous?
If you follow the laws, you've got nothing to fear, and a Justicar would die without hesitation to protect the innocent. But their code orders them to stop lawbreakers, with lethal force in most cases, and everyone skirts the law somehow on Ilium. If someone tried to bribe her, she'd be obliged to gun them down as a matter of honor. I'm hoping to avoid that.
Okay. It does sound like she's the kind of person who would find herself very busy on a place like Ilium. Because, as you were saying, pretty much everybody is, up to some kind of trouble on Ilium. Concerned about aliens? That is interesting. That apparently, what with her being primarily, or at least Justicars in general, primarily being stuck in Asari space, it's not often that they are dealing with other species. And so, yeah, is there some kind of concern about how she might be behaving around, say, humans, for example?
Why are you worried about other species coming into contact with her?
If a Justicar kills an Asari, none of us questions it. But if she killed a human, do you think the Alliance would understand her actions and respect her authority? You can't even figure out your own religions. It's a big diplomatic
that's a
incident
low
just
blow.
waiting to happen.
But yes, I get what you're getting at here. This code that the Justicars run by, I mean, apparently the Asari understand it, or at least are accepting of it. And so if it means Justicar is supposedly has the okay to kill somebody in the name of the code, then the Asari are like, yeah, that's acceptable, have a nice day. Whereas, yeah, humans, I'm pretty sure, would be a little more concerned about that. Might not be too pleased with the murder. So, yeah, that might cause a bit of an incident. But, yeah, what exactly is a Justicar?
Tell me about the Justicars.
They're a monastic order. They've given up their families and possessions to follow their code. Most of them are on some lifelong mission, but they'll always stop to deal with any injustice they encounter, which can be a problem. In some ways, they're a lot like the Spectres, undertaking personal missions.
Okay. I mean, Spectres are some of the most powerful groups of people in the entire galaxy, so Spectres are technically ruled by the Council, or at least bosses. The Council are the Spectres' bosses. So who governs the Justicars in that case? Who makes sure that they don't just go crazy and start murdering everybody in the name of their code?
Spectres are authorized by the Council. Who do Justicars represent?
What? That's like, I don't know, a good human metaphor. They represent their code, our code. It's closer to a religious group than a legal branch. No law-abiding Asari would question a Justicar's orders. Nobody becomes a Justicar for personal gain. And they die before breaking their oaths.
It does seem a little odd, just because it's sort of blurring the line between religion and law, which is not usually two things that are closely intertwined in many ways. At least for humans, they tend to be separate. So, that's a little strange. But where exactly did she go?
I'm looking for Samara.
Oh, I guess we
like
did
I
ask her
said, she's
this.
at the commercial spaceport. You can hail a cab at the pedestal on that balcony over there.
Okay.
Thanks for your help.
Good luck with the Justicar. Try not to piss her off.
Okay. We'll try. So, yeah, you can just hail the cab directly from her, or alternatively... Oh, I guess we get a few Paragon points as well. Nice. But, alternatively, you can just walk over, I believe it's in this direction here, and, hail a cab here.
Relax. Thax will never notice a few missing pieces. No, I can't get in. Because it's a crime scene. It's all locked down. The Clips Mercs, some Justicar, I don't know. Nobody is ever going to see the extra merchandise, which is why we're going to be rich.
Okay. Hey, just by the way, that is the area where we're about to go.
I'm on a call.
Oh, I'm sorry. See, I think it's over here where we hailed the cab. This is also where we called the cab for Lair the Shadow Broker as well. So, yeah, fitting, I suppose, in that sense. So, once we do this, I believe this becomes the point of no return for this mission. So, let's save, at the very least. And, yeah, now we can head over to the commercial spaceport, so let's do it.